Welcome back to Flashback Friday. As we get closer to Christmas, I'm extra thrilled to be looking back at some of these Star Wars 12-inch figures, particularly the Episode 1 figures, because I remember these figures being the absolute top of my Christmas list the year that Episode 1 came out. I was absolutely mad about this film and Star Wars in general, but my top favourite character from the film was Darth Maul, and this figure was the absolute pinnacle of my Christmas wish list that year. I was desperate to get my hands on Darth Maul, and I was very fortunate because Santa was very, very kind to me that year because he did get me Darth Maul. So without further ado, let's take a look at this 12-inch Darth Maul figure from Hasbro. Now, if you saw my video from last week, this packaging is going to look very, very familiar because all of these 12-inch Episode 1 figures had the exact same packaging. There wasn't really an awful lot of nuance. Of course, we see the Darth Maul icon at the very bottom of the packaging there. We have the Star Wars Episode 1 logo, we have the character name, and of course we have that window display. And behind the character, in that inlay, we see the red lightsaber branding that is very reminiscent of the Power of the Force line, which usually had the green or blue lightsaber. And just as we saw with Qui-Gon Jinn, if we look at the side panel, we can see they've opted for this kind of window display here that's done in the style, I think, of Coruscant or perhaps Naboo, I'm not sure which, where you can kind of still see the figure through. This looks very nice, but in a way I think I probably would have preferred to have had an image of the character like we used to see in under the Kenner line, because then of course you can stack these up on your shelf and every character feels different and unique, and it looks quite fun. And if we flip the packaging again, we can see the other characters that are available in this first wave. We have, of course, Darth Maul, Jar Jar Binks, and Qui-Gon Jinn. We have a little bit of text about the film, and at the very bottom, very consistent with what we've seen from the Kenner line, we have an image, a stock image of the character from the film, which is pretty cool. So as I mentioned at the top of the video, this figure had an awful lot to live up to in terms of my expectations as a child, because there was a lot resting on this figure. Did he live up to them? Yes, he did. Let's start off by looking at the sculpt. I think this is absolutely fantastic. I love all the detail here. The little horns on the head are really nicely done. The proportions of the face look pretty screen accurate. If we look at a photo from the film, we can see actor Ray Park there. It looks really, really good. The tattoos look pretty accurate, to be honest. I mean, they're not quite right, but pretty much there, especially for a figure of this time. I think this is actually quite remarkable. So I really love the paint apps here, particularly in the eyes. If we look at the detail, they sort of like that sun effect around the iris is really, really very delicately done and very, very effective. So I think they've done a tremendous job of the paint apps. I really love this sculpting, and I think it looks tremendously screen accurate for this time. I absolutely adore the tailoring on this figure because, of course, it comes with this big giant cloak, which you can remove, but I love the sleeves on this. You've got these really long baggy sleeves on which you actually can hide his arms and his lightsaber if you want to. So I love that. It's long, it's flowing, it's got really nice textures, lots of different materials used here. There's a kind of a stretchy fabric, which is really nice, and of course you can open that up. There's a little clasp that you can undo, and you can see other materials underneath for his sort of more basic Sith robes, which just looks fantastic. And at the top of this cloak, he also has this brilliant hood as well, which, as you can see, is quite a thin material, but it's really quite large, so you can shape it over the entire head. You can obscure his face if you want to give him a bit more mystery, but I really like this. Although there's no wire to sort of mould it into a specific shape, it does hold its shape very, very nicely. So I think they've done a really good job with this, and it lends a little bit more mystery to the character, which I think is really cool. You'll also note that he's actually given proper gauntlets as well. This is kind of a plastic material rather than rubber, which is really good, so it's quite firm and solid and can grip various accessories such as his lightsaber very, very tightly, which is brilliant. Obviously we are going to have a compromise when it comes to the articulation in the wrist, but overall this looks really, really good. He is given rubber boots, which was pretty standard for this line, but they are a cut above the Kenner boots, which tended to be quite thick and a bit clunky, and they could never stand properly. These are a lot better. He can stand freely, and they're a lot thinner in terms of the rubber used, and a lot more detailed. So obviously, these are uniquely sculpted boots for Darth Maul. They're not used on any other character, and they look pretty good. They look a lot more in proportion with the rest of the body, just because they are just fractionally thinner than what we are used to seeing on the Kenner line. So I actually think these work very, very nicely. So how does he fare in terms of articulation? Well, he has this wonderful ball joint in the neck, which was new to this line, and I absolutely adored it as a kid, and I love it even now. So there is a ball joint here, which means he can move his head not just side to side, but forwards and backwards, up and down, and left to right, which is absolutely tremendous and just felt revolutionary at the time. So this is absolutely fantastic. This is accompanied by a ball joint in the shoulder, so of course the arms do kick up and out, which is brilliant to see. There is a bicep bicep swivel as well, and you'll notice there is a swivel at the lower arm that will allow that forearm to rotate all the way around, which makes up for some of the lack of articulation in the wrist, which is great. Of course, that lower arm will also hinge at the elbow as well to about 90 degrees, as you would expect, so this is solid stuff. There is also a fantastic ball joint in the waist, which will allow this figure to turn from side to side, lean from left to right, and of course bend forwards and backwards as well. Ball joints in the hips allow the legs to kick out to the side, those legs to kick forwards and backwards a little bit as well. Now, sadly, at the legs, he does have these rubber legs, which you all know I'm not a huge fan of, and it's a real shame that they didn't give him a proper hinge joint here. He also comes with his lightsaber, of course, and I really like the sculpting here. Of course, it's unique to this character, which is brilliant. I've always loved this double-edged lightsaber. It just seems so cool at the time when the film was released, and I love the detail in here. So we've got a lot of detail in the sculpting, but also some of the paint apps are really nice as well. We can see some black and silver in there and just gives it a little bit more texture. So this looks pretty authentic to what we see on screen, which is great. Of course, he also comes with 2 lightsaber blades, and you can choose to have one at a time or both together, just as we see in the film. All in all, this is a pretty cool figure, and he certainly lived up and surpassed my expectations as a child. I really loved the new enhanced articulation we were seeing in this line, particularly that ball joint in the neck and of course in the waist. Just opened up a new world of possibilities. Sadly, there were some legacy issues around the rubber legs or rubber arms for some of these figures, but overall these were a massive leap forwards in terms of what we could do with our toys now. So I really like this figure in particular. It was a favourite character of mine. I think they did a tremendous job on the costuming and the paint apps and the fun accessories that he comes with as well. So I think he's a tremendous figure. You put him in with the others as well. We can see Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan here, and you can see the endless amounts of fun play that I had with these when I was a kid. So absolutely love this line, and this figure in particular is probably my all-time favourite. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos soon.